There is a prison in Russia where the gates do not symbolize punishment. They symbolize the end of life as it is known. The locals call it Black Dolphin Prison. Officially, it is Penal Colony No. 6, hidden deep in the Orenburg region, surrounded by endless steppe, isolation, and silence so heavy it feels deliberate. The prison does not rise proudly like a fortress. It squats low, gray, and brutal, designed not to impress, but to erase. From the outside, it looks ordinary. From the inside, it is a place where time stops moving forward. Every man sent here is already considered dead by society. The prisoners inside Black Dolphin are Russia's worst offenders: serial killers, cannibals, terrorists, mass murderers. Men whose crimes were so extreme that the state decided execution was unnecessary. Life itself would be the punishment. No one escapes Black Dolphin. No one has ever come close. And the prison is built so that inmates never even see the outside world again. The journey to Black Dolphin begins long before the gates appear. Prisoners are transported in sealed vehicles, blindfolded, handcuffed, and bent forward so they cannot memorize routes or landmarks. Even hardened criminals panic during this trip. Not because of where they are going, but because of what they have heard. Stories circulate through Russia's prison system like whispered curses. Stories of men screaming at night. Of guards who never raise their voices because they never need to. Of rules so strict they turn people into shadows. By the time the transport stops, most prisoners are already broken. The blindfolds come off only when they are inside the intake hall. The first thing inmates see is the statue. A black dolphin rising from the ground, frozen mid-leap. It is not decorative. It is a warning. The dolphin symbolizes intelligence, control, and dominance. It reminds inmates that they are being watched, studied, and contained. Some prisoners say the dolphin is the last thing you see before your humanity disappears. The processing begins immediately. Every prisoner is stripped naked. Their bodies are searched inch by inch. Tattoos are photographed. Scars documented. Hair shaved. Teeth checked. Nothing is missed. Nothing is private. The goal is not just security, it is psychological ownership. From the moment processing ends, the rules begin. Hands must always be held behind the back when walking. Eyes must remain on the floor. Talking is forbidden unless ordered. Sudden movements are punished instantly. The guards do not shout. They do not threaten. They do not insult. They simply enforce. Every inmate is placed in a two-man cell. No exceptions. The cell is small, spotless, and painfully bright. Lights remain on at all times. Darkness is considered dangerous, not for the guards, but for the prisoners' minds. Beds are bolted to the wall. During the day, they are folded up and locked, forcing inmates to stand or sit on metal stools. Lying down outside sleeping hours is forbidden. Staring out the tiny barred window is forbidden. Looking directly at a guard is forbidden. The silence is the worst part. No radios. No television. No books without approval. No conversations beyond a few words. Sound is a privilege in Black Dolphin, and it is rarely granted. Meals arrive through a small slot in the door. Guards watch as inmates eat, timing each bite. Food is bland, repetitive, and just enough to keep the body functioning. Hunger is not meant to kill, it is meant to remind. Every movement is monitored. Cameras watch the cells constantly. Guards check visually every few minutes, even at night. Prisoners are woken repeatedly to ensure they are alive and compliant. Sleep becomes fractured. Dreams become distorted. Men begin to lose track of days. Then weeks. Then years. Some prisoners arrive defiant, convinced they will outlast the system. Those men do not last long. Within months, changes appear. Prisoners begin speaking to walls, counting footsteps that no longer matter, memorizing cracks in concrete like sacred texts. Some stop speaking entirely. Psychologists visit regularly, not to heal, but to evaluate damage. Black Dolphin is not about rehabilitation. It is about containment until death. Exercise is allowed, but only in small concrete cages open to the sky. Inmates walk in circles, hands behind backs, eyes down, while guards watch from above. The sky is visible, but unreachable. Some prisoners say this is the cruelest part, to see freedom without touching it. Over time, the prison develops a rhythm. Doors open. Doors close. Chains rattle. Silence returns. Every sound carries weight. Every echo feels permanent. The guards rotate shifts, but the prison never sleeps. It does not need to. It feeds on routine. New prisoners sometimes test the rules. They speak without permission. They look up. They hesitate. Punishment is immediate and precise. Privileges are removed. Exercise is cancelled. Isolation intensifies. In extreme cases, prisoners are transferred to reinforced cells where sound barely exists. These cells are rumored to cause hallucinations within weeks. Men report hearing voices that beg them to confess to crimes they never committed. Others hear nothing at all, and that silence becomes unbearable. There are no riots in Black Dolphin. No fights. No organized resistance. Fear is too efficient. At night, the prison makes its own sounds. Pipes groan. Metal clicks. Wind slides through cracks like breath. Inmates lie awake, staring at the ceiling, knowing the lights will never turn off. Some pray. Some beg. Some simply wait. One former guard described Black Dolphin as a place where evil is buried alive. He said the prisoners weren't the most frightening part. It was how quickly they stopped being people. Years pass. Bodies weaken. Minds fade. The world outside becomes abstract. Inmates forget seasons. Forget faces. Forget voices. Some forget their own crimes, not because they regret them, but because memory requires stimulation. Death comes quietly in Black Dolphin. No announcements. No ceremonies. No mourning. A body is removed. The cell is cleaned. Another man takes the place. The Dolphin watches. For the prisoners still alive, the truth becomes clear. Black Dolphin is not meant to end lives quickly. It is meant to stretch punishment until time itself feels endless. And this is only the beginning. Because behind the rules, behind the silence, behind the perfect order of Black Dolphin, there are secrets even darker, things the prison never admits, and inmates rarely survive long enough to describe. What happens when a man spends decades without real human contact? What does the mind do when hope is removed completely? And why do some guards refuse to speak about what they've seen inside those walls? Those answers lie deeper inside Black Dolphin. And once you enter, the prison does not let them leave. After the first year inside Black Dolphin, something irreversible happens. The men stop counting. At first, prisoners measure time obsessively. They count meals, guard checks, footsteps in the corridor, the number of times the slot opens in the door. They try to build structure where none exists. They carve calendars into their minds, afraid that if they lose track of days, they will lose themselves. But Black Dolphin is patient. Slowly, the routine erodes meaning. One day becomes indistinguishable from the next. The lights never change. The rules never soften. The silence never breaks. Time becomes flat, an endless present with no past and no future. This is when the prison truly begins its work. Psychologists have a name for what happens here, though they rarely say it out loud: identity collapse. When human interaction is reduced to commands and compliance, the mind begins to fold inward. Thoughts echo. Memories replay until they lose clarity. Faces blur. Voices fade. Some inmates try to preserve themselves by revisiting their crimes in detail. They replay every moment, every decision, every scream. Others refuse to think about their past at all, fearing that remembering will only sharpen the pain. Both approaches fail. Black Dolphin takes everything eventually. Guards notice the signs before anyone else. A man stops responding to his name. Another forgets simple instructions. One begins standing motionless for hours, staring at the same spot on the wall. When asked questions, he answers slowly, as if pulling words from deep water. These men are still alive, but something essential has gone missing. There are no mirrors in the cells. Prisoners are not allowed to see their reflections. Over time, they forget their own faces. When asked to describe themselves, many hesitate. Some guess, Others remain silent. One former inmate later said the worst realization came when he could no longer imagine himself outside the prison. Not freedom. Not sunlight. Not another life. The idea simply vanished. Movement through Black Dolphin is choreographed with ruthless precision. When inmates are escorted, guards control every step. Hands twisted behind backs. Bodies bent forward. Heads forced downward so eyes never rise above knee level. The position is painful by design. It reminds prisoners that they exist only in submission. Every corridor looks the same. White walls. Gray floors. Metal doors. There are no signs. No markers. Prisoners cannot orient themselves even if they wanted to. Disorientation is constant. And then there are the reinforced cells. These cells are used sparingly, but everyone knows about them. Thick doors. Extra padding. Reduced sound. Men sent there are not beaten or tortured. They are simply removed from what little stimulation remains. Guards describe them as quiet rooms. Inmates describe them as places where the mind eats itself. Men placed in reinforced cells begin to hallucinate within days. They hear voices calling their names. They feel pressure on their chests at night. Some report seeing shadows move across the walls, even though the lights never change. One inmate reportedly begged guards to let him hear shouting, insults, anything. Silence had become unbearable. When he was returned to his regular cell weeks later, he spoke non-stop for hours, words spilling out uncontrollably, as if afraid silence would swallow him again. Others are not so lucky. Some come back quieter than before. Some never speak again. Suicide attempts do occur, though they are rarely successful. Black Dolphin is designed to prevent even that. Beds fold up. Sheets are monitored. Guards check constantly. Death is not an escape here. It is a process controlled by the institution. And yet, men still try. They slam their heads into walls. Refuse food. Tear at their own skin. Guards intervene quickly, efficiently, without emotion. Injuries are treated. Cells are cleaned. Life continues. Black Dolphin does not punish emotion. It ignores it. Years inside the prison create a strange transformation. Some inmates become eerily calm. They follow rules perfectly. They move with robotic precision. They speak only when spoken to. Guards sometimes refer to these men as settled. But settlement is not peace. It is surrender at the deepest level. The prisoners who survive longest are not the strongest or the most defiant. They are the ones who stop wanting. Wanting becomes dangerous. Wanting freedom. Wanting connection. Wanting meaning. Desire leads to frustration, and frustration leads to collapse. So they learn not to want. Religion becomes complicated here. Some inmates cling to faith as their last identity. Others lose it entirely, unable to reconcile endless punishment with any concept of mercy. Prayers are whispered quietly at night, but many report feeling as if no one is listening. Even God feels distant inside Black Dolphin. Guards are trained to maintain emotional distance. They do not learn inmates' stories. They do not discuss crimes. They do not use first names unless required. The system protects them too. Empathy is dangerous in a place designed to erase humanity. Yet even guards are affected. Veterans of Black Dolphin often request transfers after several years. Some develop insomnia. Others report recurring dreams where they are trapped inside cells themselves. One former guard admitted that after a decade, he stopped seeing prisoners as people, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. To survive, he said, you have to turn something off. There are rumors that circulate quietly among staff. Stories of inmates who stop responding entirely. Men who stand motionless for days. Prisoners whose medical scans show no physical damage, yet who seem hollow, present but absent. Guards whisper about empty men. Officially, these cases are described as psychological deterioration. Unofficially, no one likes to talk about them. Executions no longer exist in Russia, but Black Dolphin functions as something worse, a living sentence. Life without horizon. Punishment without climax. Suffering stretched thin over decades. Some inmates die of natural causes. heart failure, stroke, organ failure. Their bodies are removed silently at night to avoid disruption. Cells are sanitized thoroughly. The routine continues. No announcements are made. The dolphin remains. The statue in the yard never changes. Snow gathers on it in winter. Rain slicks its surface in summer. Prisoners see it only once, on arrival. After that, it exists only in memory. But the symbol stays with them. Intelligent, cold, watching. Former inmates who are transferred out for medical reasons sometimes struggle to speak about Black Dolphin. When they do, their voices flatten. Emotion drains away. Their descriptions are precise, factual, devoid of drama. One man said, "It doesn't hurt the way pain hurts. It hurts the way forgetting hurts." Perhaps that is the greatest secret of Black Dolphin. It is not built to punish bodies. It is built to erase cells. There are no dramatic escapes. No riots. No legendary uprisings. The prison does not produce stories of heroism. It produces absence. Gaps where people used to be. And that is why it works. When the world outside imagines Black Dolphin, it imagines brutality, violence, screaming. The reality is far quieter. A man stands in a bright cell, hands behind his back, eyes on the floor. A door opens. A command is given. A door closes. Years pass. Hope does not die loudly here. It fades. And somewhere deep in the Russian steppe, behind walls designed to outlast memory itself, Black Dolphin continues doing exactly what it was built to do. Not to rehabilitate. Not to forgive. Not to forget crimes. But to ensure that the men inside are forgotten themselves. By everyone. Including who they once were.